Welcome to EVTN News. This is the news program that identifies as the number one news program in the Catholic world, Eternal Vigano Television Network. And Pope Francis recently blasted EVTN, saying that they were being divisive and all that good stuff. And that's something that we identify as being divisive because we need division right now in the Catholic Church. We need not necessarily we need to divide the church, but we need to separate the sheep from the goats, and that's something EVTN News is doing. So, getting started, did you watch Vigano's videos? Did you watch his videos on YouTube? I talked about it last week. He has some video clips, so check those out. The first story I wanted to get to, and Brett the Fog shared this with me, it's Gene Gomolka. He came up with a seminary report. It's the first link in the description below. I posted all my links in the description. This is going to be a lot of news topics today. And this specific topic, this specific report, it was a 70-plus page report on abuse and harassment in seminaries. It synthesizes news reports over the last several years of incidents in seminaries. So you want to say that seminaries are good. The bishops, they say, oh, we've improved. Our seminaries are great. None of all the problems from McCarrick and all that stuff are completely gone. And you look at this report, and there's a 70-page report, and it's pretty recent. A lot of recent stories. I told Brett, I'm familiar with a lot of these incidents. Here's the thing: you add them up, and what does that say about the seminaries? They're bad seminaries. There's a lot of them too. It's not just like, oh, well, that's just that one seminary in Buffalo. No, there's a lot more than that, including the NAC in Rome. That's completely rotten, completely garbage. And as far as I know, no one's taken any steps to clean it up. People have resigned, but who's being promoted into those positions? Is it people that have been trained by the people that are resigning? Probably. So that's pretty bad. Oh, and check that out if you're interested. 70-plus pages. It's definitely a report. But see what you recognize, see what stories sound familiar to you, see what new stuff you know. And there's a lot of bishops named as well. So that's pretty disappointing. Speaking of bishops, there's a Bishop William Byrne of Springfield in Massachusetts, said Tuesday that clerics in the diocese should support Catholics who themselves seek conscientious exemption from jab mandates by attesting to their baptism and practice of the faith. So he sort of supports religious exemptions. Here's a quote: "It is important for us to recognize and encourage the well-formed consciences of those who both desire the jab for themselves and the common good, as well as those who, for health concerns or for other reasons, may desire not to receive the jab." He wrote this on September 4th to clerics in his diocese. So Bishop Byrne in Springfield, Massachusetts, good job, I guess. Thanks. One of the few bishops that are standing up for the Catholics. There's a Swiss bishop who opposes the jab. This is all about jabs, TLM bans. Like this whole program, it's really just come to that in the Catholic world, is like, okay, which bishops are mandating the jab, which ones are banning the TLM, and it's really sad. I wish we could talk about some good news. There's occasionally some good news here and there, mostly bad news though, unfortunately. Bishop Marian Eleganti, former auxiliary bishop in the Diocese of Chur, Switzerland. He sent a statement to LifeSite News. Now, Chur, Switzerland, it's run by Bishop Calvin Klein. Actually, that's not his name. I forget his name, Bishop Joseph something. But he's this bodybuilder guy. He wears tight shirts. Looks like he's auditioning for a position at Word on Fire. And this guy is Opus Dei, but he promotes all this crazy, German Cinedality type of stuff. And he's in Switzerland. It's pretty sad. But apparently the Diocese of Chur, Switzerland was like super trad until, these guys were either forced out or retired. Here's a former auxiliary bishop. He says, these jabs do not deliver what they promise. On the contrary, they are harmful to health, for many even deadly. They have been produced in an unethical way by people who obviously have no conscience. They are also propagated and imposed by such in many places. The truth is suppressed everywhere. That is why there's no more freedom, but the truth will prevail. So, this is the kind of statements we want to hear from bishops. So, Bishop Marian Eleganti, former auxiliary bishop in the Diocese of Church, Switzerland, he's on the radar of LifeSite News. They're going to promote bishops who are good bishops. They're gonna release these statements. So good on LifeSite News. Good on Bishop Eleganti. Thank you. Pope Francis had something to say about confession. He said, "Are sins really the center of confession? What does God want? That you approach Him thinking about Him or about your sins? What is central, our sins or the Father who forgives everything? It is the Father." Pope Francis said this in Kosice, Slovakia on September 14th. So, like, okay, what is the center of confession? Like, do you go to confession to confess your sins? Because I certainly do. I don't know, just more craziness. All right, that's not really even worth discussing any further. The Archdiocese of Guadalajara in Mexico, they have a crackdown on the TLM. The Archdiocese has ruled that one of the FSSP's apostolates in the diocese, what describes as a quasi-parish of St. Peter in Chains, will be canonically suppressed. Confusingly, the decree misnames priestly fraternity of St. Peter as the sacerdotal fraternity of St. Peter in Chains. So the Archbishop who was writing this, actually, is it Cardinal Ortega? I believe it was Cardinal Ortega. He doesn't even know what the FSSP stands for, so that's pretty interesting. He said where FSSP masses are allowed to continue in the diocese, the decree states that the readings of the mass may only be read in the vernacular, not in Latin, and that the priests must use the modern translations as provided by the Mexican Episcopal Conference. This is particularly problematic because the readings in Latin serve a very fundamental purpose. They're an oblation for the living and the dead, as Latin is a sacred language of the Roman Rite. And so this is, I don't know, if this is actually followed, if this practice is actually followed of only reading the readings in the vernacular, does that mean that the Latin Mass no longer is the Latin Mass? I don't know. So Cardinal Ortega claims that pastorally I have received uninterruptedly ample information of the consequences for this archdiocese and other archdioceses and dioceses of Mexico. Great. Okay, so diocesan TLMs are permitted to continue based on that information, and an official spokesperson of the FSSP has told LifeSite that the FSSP has not been involved in the process leading up to the decree. That's pretty common among different dioceses. He wrote, "We have received a letter from the Archdiocese and are reviewing its details, having not been consulted at any point throughout the process. After we are afforded a proper conversation with officials in the Chancery, we will issue a formal response." So they're just expecting that the Chancery is even going to talk to them. I mean, good luck with that. Some of these bishops are completely hostile to the Latin Mass and the Catholic faith. It's pretty sad to see. Some more, pathetic news from Mexico. Unjabbed priests are going to lose their health insurance. So this isn't really this is taking it further than anyone in the United States, any bishop in the United States has. They're bullying these priests basically. The Mexican bishops on August 30th published 4 situations in which their health service will not pay for bills. The priest cannot pay by himself. First is when a priest exposed himself recklessly to the virus, whatever that means. They could say anything, really. Number 2 is when he tested positive for the virus and doesn't take the measures. Number 3 is when he doesn't cover his face, wear one of these things. Number 4 is when he refuses the jab. So basically, if you're not full out virus religion, that they can they're basically saying that they're going to deny you health insurance. That's pretty pathetic. And I think that a lot of priests should really consider turning in their resignations or at least asking for a sabbatical in Mexico if that's even possible. We're moving back to the United States. Catholic University of America president to retire. Now, this is, I mean, I don't normally focus on universities because they're completely compromised, but John Garvey is age 72. He announced his resignation. And Catholic University is a pretty prominent university in America. They have a pretty big seminary attached to that university. And so I, I believe, is that the one next to the National Basilica? I don't know. But anyway, President John Garvey had drawn criticism for hiring an openly pro-LMNOP dean for last year for the Catholic University's Social Work School, despite having fired conservative professors for social media posts. And he also defended the notorious Father James Martin. So there's a search committee that's going out from Catholic University of America, and they've named the best bishops available for it. Cardinal Tobin. Yeah, this is real life, guys. I also named Archbishop Hebda, who allows a openly LMNOP parish, St. Joan of Arc, in his archdiocese. Archbishop Vigneron of Detroit, church militant certainly hates him. And a social justice nun, Sister Janet Eisner, sister of Notre Dame de Namur, who has led Boston's Emmanuel College for more than 40 years. Under her leadership, Emmanuel has taken a decisively LMNOP turn with LMNOP Plus, lavender graduation ceremonies, and annual LMNOP retreats sponsored by the school's campus ministry. Oh, yeah, that sounds pretty disgusting. Okay. Pope Francis invited a Pennsylvania rabbi to discuss climate change. Rabbi Daniel Schwartz of the Temple Hesed in Scranton, Pennsylvania, will take part in a discussion with Pope Francis on climate change. The Vatican invited only 50 people from around the world. So Pope Francis is organizing these, what would you say, social justice groups, leftist groups. I don't know. Is the priority of the Vatican to save souls? Because you couldn't tell from a lot of this stuff. Okay, moving on to Germany. Cardinal Casper, he's having second thoughts about the German synodal paths. Now, he spoke up before about this, and I said, this is pretty interesting, but he spoke out again, and that's significant because Cardinal Casper is certainly one of the cardinals who has been heretical on certain issues. In a lecture given in Rome on September 17th, Cardinal Casper criticized the official text of one of the themes of the synodal path on the exercise of power and authority in the church, saying that it attempts to reinvent the church, so to speak, with the help of an erudite theological and theoretical framework. There is much to correct. There is much that is correct in it, he said, but added there is also much that is hypothetical, and that in the end many wonder whether all this is still entirely Catholic. Well, we're wondering the same thing. I don't agree where he says there's much that is correct in it. I think most of it's wrong because most of it is following the ideals of the Marxists. And he went on, some statements clearly deviate from the basic concerns of Vatican II, for example, in the sacramental understanding of the church and the episcopate. What's he referring to? Women priests? I don't know, but Cardinal Casper's not on board with this German synodal path. You've gone pretty far over the edge to the left whenever Cardinal Casper doesn't even agree with that. But I would say, and here's my thought on politics, and Tim Flanders actually, he said that there are traditional Catholics, conservative Catholics, and liberal Catholics who are heretics. And so the traditional and the conservative Catholics are not heretics because they accept all of the teachings of the church. The liberal Catholics are because they dissent from a lot of these teachings. So my thought is that anyone really to the left, if you're going to consider someone a liberal Catholic, um, they're far left Catholic or alt left or whatever you want to call it, Marxist, not Catholic, heretical, whatever. So that's just my thought on that. Speaking of heretical Catholics, the Jesuit website, Church Militant reported this. There's a Jesuit website. It's a list of Jesuit colleges and universities that have announced jab requirements, and they're saying here's a list of jab required colleges. At the bottom of the list, under the prayers and reflections section, it lists several links, including one for Ignatian yoga. So there you go. And more. Speaking of more heresy, um, the synodal process, the synods on synod. There's a diocesan synod on synodality. Or wait, no, it's a diocesan synod to go to a country nationwide synod to go to an international Vatican synod on synodality. I mean, it's just it's pathetic. And this synodal process for the diocesan level launches on October 17th in parishes and dioceses worldwide. The Pope is scheduled to formally open the synod process at the Vatican on October 9th and 10th, so stay tuned for that. That's coming right up. Each diocese is being asked to submit a summary of local discussions by April 1st to the USCCB, which will then take a month to synthesize a final written presentation for the Vatican. So April Fools, you have to submit your each diocese has to submit their synodal discussions to the USCCB on April Fools, because guess what? April Fools is a very fitting day for the Synod on Cinedality. Canada, okay, so the Archbishop of Moncton, New Brunswick in Canada has reversed his course. Remember, he had required jabs for Mass, and so everyone was like, well, he's deviated from the Catholic faith. He's basically denying people their canonical right to Mass. And he reversed course. He said they're no longer required to attend Sunday Mass or daily Mass. But if you want to attend a wedding or a funeral, you still have to have your jab. It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense there. So if I wanted to have a wedding in the Archdiocese of New Brunswick, is it the whole province, New Brunswick? I don't know. But if I wanted to have a wedding, and like if I were in this archdiocese and I wanted to have a wedding, I couldn't. If my kid was having a wedding and I wanted to attend it, I couldn't. So this is literally insane. If you want to attend a funeral, you can't. How pathetic is that? This archbishop, he needs to resign. I said it before, but he won't. I mean, the money's probably nice. That's why. Otherwise, there's no reason that he should continue to be an archbishop. If he's not going to promote the Catholic faith, if he's not going to lead the diocese, then no reason for him to be a bishop. That's very obvious, but unfortunately, I don't think he'll listen to me. All right, so the French bishops met with Pope Francis recently, and there's a quote from Rorate Cheli, confirming rumors that the Pope was targeting specific countries with these strict measures. Archbishop Alpetit reported that Francis had mentioned risks, particularly in the United States, Switzerland, and a little in France. So the Pope was targeting, so this specifies, this confirms the Pope was targeting the United States and Switzerland for the Latin Mass crackdown. So we're having an impact. Maybe Pope Francis does watch EVTN, and maybe he was directing this towards EVTN. Not that I would expect that, but I think it is significant. He sees that the growth of the Latin Mass, especially in the United States, is very profound. It's very significant because if you look at Novus Ordos, they're all declining. It's just a very sad situation, and the Latin Masses, most of them are growing very significantly. New people every week, and they're just these people just want Catholicism, and so they're finding that in the Latin Mass, and Pope Francis doesn't want that apparently, and so he's cracking down on the Latin Mass, and it was directed at the United States, Switzerland, and little in France. Maybe he said that just because the French bishops were there, but yeah, I thought that was pretty significant. And speaking of a French bishop, Bishop Brunin, the Diocese of Le Havre, he banned the traditional sacraments. So, in his text, which defines the application of Traditionis Custodes in his diocese, he maintains the Sunday Mass of the FSSP in the chapel of Saint Michael de Ignoville, as well as the faculty given to the priest to confess and administer the extreme unction. He forbids baptisms, weddings, and funerals that are celebrated by the faithful of Saint Michael according to the Tridentine Rite. Likewise, it suppresses the possibility given to priests of the FSSP to catechize adults and children. So he forbids the FSSP to do baptisms, weddings, and funerals, and to run a catechism class. The problem is the Catholic faith is such a threat to these bishops, they have to ban it. Okay, here's a funny one. Women in seminaries. The National Catholic Distorter. You'll have to read this article, and you can see past the spin. I mean, you guys are all smart enough to see that. Milwaukee Archbishop Jerome Listecki told the nation's bishops in a September 22nd memo that they might consider various options to ensure that only men are ordained to the Catholic priesthood. All right, that's nice. In a recent memo, Listecki says that his committee had been made aware of instances where it had been discovered that a woman was living under a male identity in a seminary, or it had been admitted to a seminary or a religious institute's house of formation. So, all right. And in one instance, Listecki wrote an individual's sacramental records had been fraudulently obtained to reflect her new identity. In all instances, nothing in these individuals' medical or psychological reports had signaled past treatments or pertinent surgeries. The Archbishop also wrote that luckily each case of a LMNOP seminarian or religious, not LMNOP, but you know what I mean, a woman seminarian or religious in training had been discovered before they received the sacrament of holy orders. So there's women who are pretending to be men to get into a seminary. I thought it would be the other way around. I thought a man would get ordained, then pretend to be a woman and say, "Oh, there's a female priest." Or no, a man would get ordained, then pretend to be a woman, and then he would say, "Oh, I'm a female priest." Yeah. So this is pretty crazy. How do you filter out the women who are trying to pretend to be men in the seminaries, and which seminaries admitted them? That's Religious Institute's House of Formation. Well, you know, religious orders have houses of formation. Can you think of a specific religious order that would admit that would be very welcoming to admit women into their house of formation, or not realize that they were admitting a woman instead of a man? I can think of at least one. Okay, moving to Canada. Cardinal Collins requires the jab beginning on October, or it's Toronto's Cardinal Collins. He says beginning on October 8th, we will require that all clergy, bishops, priests, deacons be fully jabbed against the virus or provide regular proof of recent negative test result in order to perform their duties. If a person opts for testing, the memo states they will be forced to pay for the weekly testing out of pocket at a fee of about $40 per test. So this is another I guess, bullying tactic by bishops. It's not just bullying, it's completely anti-Catholic, because this is certainly a decision. It should be free, and $40 per week is it's not going to break, it's not going to break your salary, but it's still, it's really taken away money that the archdiocese really, they shouldn't be charging this. This is ridiculous. He's also said if an employee does not comply with this policy or is found to have submitted fraudulent proof of jab, fraudulent test result, fraudulent summary, fraudulent documentation in support of an accommodation request, they may be subject to discipline, which includes being placed on an unpaid leave of absence, up to and including termination of employment for just cause. So that's really dumb. Cardinal Collins, please resign. Again, I don't have any say on this, but you know what? I've called on half of the bishops to resign, and we'd be better off if a lot of those positions were vacant, just because these bishops have really demonstrated time and time again. A lot of them have demonstrated consistently over time that they have no interest in promoting the Catholic faith, and if that's the case, then if their seat is vacant, each diocese would be better off having no bishop than having a pathetic anti-Catholic bishop, which is what we're seeing a lot these days. Speaking of anti-Catholic bishops, Rurate Chaley reports that all masses in the state of Wyoming, Diocese of Cheyenne, have been suppressed. All Latin masses have been suppressed following Traditionis, except for a continuing one at the Catholic College. So the state of Wyoming is just one diocese because I think it's the least populated state in the United States. So there's not a lot of people there, but considering that people like the Latin Mass and they want Latin Masses, you're going to have to drive pretty far. It's a big state geographically. So if you live, on one part of the state, it might be a 4-hour, 5-hour drive maybe to the closest Latin Mass, maybe even longer. I don't know, but that's pretty sad for these guys. This bishop is Stephen Biegler. He's very friendly towards the LMNOP community, and so he supports anti-Catholic activities, but the Latin Mass is too much. Can't handle it, and he needs to resign as well. So which all bishops did I call to resign? How about let's see. Now that we're at it, how about Supich, Tobin, Gregory? How about all the cardinals in the United States? Why don't all of them resign? Even DiNardo. He was Cardinal DiNardo. He seemed to be a decent bishop, but then he suppressed a lot of the Latin Masses in his archdiocese, which is pathetic. So why don't all the cardinals in the United States resign? Also, Stowe and McElroy, that'd be a good start for the bishops. And then we could move forward and, ask more bishops to resign as the resignations come in. Wouldn't that be a dream? Let me get to the comments here. I see Patty joined us. Thanks for joining us, Patty. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Patty says the Jesuits should be told, here's a copy of the Nuremberg Code. Okay, greetings from Utah. All right, so this has been EVTN News, your source for all the stuff that Pope Francis, the criticisms of Pope Francis, we'll just say. This channel is being criticized by Pope Francis as we speak. He might even be on the live stream. I see there's a bunch of people on the live stream. So let's see here. I bet the CMRI have a mass in Wyoming. We'll find something. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. This has been EVTN News. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.